Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of the Road to 1000 Dueling Book rating. This time we're going to be taking a different deck and doing a little bit different. So this time I played Paleozoic Frogs, and so our first match is up against Fluffal Orkest. This is kind of an interesting deck, and it had quite a bit of synergies than I thought it would, because he does play like some danger cards and stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and hit the play button here. So I start off with a discard of Dupe Frog to special summon Swap Frog, then I use the effect to send a water monster or Aqua level 2 from my deck to the grave. So I do send the Ronin to the grave, which I use to banish the Dupe Frog to special summon itself. Using Swap Frog's effect, I can bounce it back to the hand, and during the same turn, I can normal summon a Frog monster from my hand, but you don't have to. You can't summon Swap Frog off of his own effect, though. So then I use his effect to send another copy of Swap Frog to the graveyard, so I have one for the next turn. I overlay a copy of Totally Awesome, and then I'm going to set two back row here, the Dynamistress as well as the Solemn Judgment. He's going to go for his turn. In the standby phase, I'm going to go ahead and activate Toad's effect to special summon a Dupe Frog from the deck. He's going to here go ahead and normal summon Fluffal Dog to search out wings and activate Toy Vendor, this card's actually pretty good. I don't know. At the time I didn't really know like exactly what like the Fluffal deck did, so I was like, okay, maybe if I Toad negate this here, I can still save my Ash in my hand for what's it called, for the one that searches if searches Patrick, that's the card. And so we have a bit of troubles of getting the card to me, but end up setting the Toy Vendor to my side of the field. And then he activates a second copy of Toy Vendor, which is pretty crazy. He's going to discard the Fluffal Wings, which does nothing in his graveyard, which is okay with me. He's going to discard the Pero Cerberus, I don't know, something like that, which comes up later in the duel. But then he's going to reveal a Danger Mothman, so I'm just telling him what I'm doing for my dice rolls here, and then we roll a number 1. Should hit the Nessie up at the top. So he discards Nessie to special Moth, and then Nessie searches himself Jack. Searches Sukanoko, and he draws into the Jackalope off of Mothman. So Sukanoko, and then it's going to hit itself, so it's going to special summon itself back. Then he uses 2 of them into a copy of Nightmare Phoenix, and so I'm thinking on summon here. I think I end up just letting it go through. He destroys my Toy Vendor, which is okay. And then I am going to Ash the Vendor's effect, which I'm not sure if is the right play here, because I mean it's not once a return, which is absolutely crazy. Now that I'm like thinking about it, later he's going to use the Fluffal Wings. I think here, if I remember correctly. Also, he uses the Jack effect to summon Mothman. Fluffal Wings banishes Dog and itself to draw a card. He draws into Silent Boots up at the top, you can see here. And then he uses Vendor's effect, and if it's sent to the graveyard, he can add one. And then I think you also get an add off of the... Oh, yes, here. So you get 2 draws off of Fluffal Wings, which is absolutely crazy, and a search. So that's crazy. Then he searches for Bear. So he just drew into Ash, Boots, and Fluffal Bear all in the same like breath, which is crazy. He he links off into Nightmare Unicorn, pitching the Boots, but I do say like, wait, I have a response on summon. So I Solemn Judgment, hitting it because I'm afraid of Nightmare Unicorn shuffling the Toad into the extra deck. Then he goes ahead and uses Bear's effect to set a Toy Vendor from his deck to the Spell and Trap Zone. Then he uses Vendor's effect to discard the Boots from his hand. He draws in a Jackalope, so it discards, and so he can use the Jackalope effect to search, and he can also use the Feminite Boots to add as well. He already used the Jackalope effect here to summon from his deck, which is why he couldn't use the second time. So that's why that happened. Anyways, so he passes it over to me. In standby phase, I activate Toad. He's going to Ash it, and I believe I just let that go through. And then he's going to Fogblade target his Mothman, which in this case, I believe I Toad negate it to take the Fog Blade to my field. So I do have an interruption on his turn, which is pretty good. And then I can use Toad's effect to add back the Swap Frog to my hand, normal summon it again. And then I can send a Ronin to my graveyard, the second one. Then I can use my Dupe Frog to special itself back and banish another one. So I banish the Dupe Frog and the Swap Frog this turn for both Ronins, and then I'm going to overlay for another Toad. So in this case, I do have a discard for Dynamistress in the forms of my Swap Frog, which is pretty good. I also can negate it with Toad by discarding the Swap Frog, so it's quite a bit of disruption here. I use Toad's effect in the standby phase to special summon a Dupe Frog from my deck. And then here, we have a bit of a... he tries to understand why I had the second run in here. But anyways, he normal summons Brass Bombard, and he links it off to a Link Karibo. And then I don't think he does anything else. I believe he just passes it back to me. Oh no, he uses Vendor's Effect, discarding the wand. And so he discards the wand and... he discards the wand to activate Vendor, and then it hits the Ash, so... yeah. Anyways, I believe he does just pass it back to me, because I don't believe there's anything in his graveyard. So we go into our standby phase, we use Toad's effect, special summon Swap Frog from our deck, normal summon the other one, and we link off into a Security Dragon, use Toad's effect to return the Toad to my extra deck, and then we use them into a copy of Nightmare Phoenix, which we can hit the vendor to draw a card. So we have one for next turn. He uses the vendor to search for the Fluffal Wings, which is okay. And then Security Dragon bounces the Link Karibo back to the extra deck. And then I summon a Ronin Toadin. I link everything off into a Boral Sword. I banish the Dupe Frog, and here I have exact 8,000 damage on board right now because I can attack for 2,000 and then 3,000, so that'll leave him with just 3,000 life points left, and then I can use Boral Sword to switch the Ronin to defense mode and attack for game. And so he takes the Nightmare Phoenix, and then he takes the Ronin's damage. And then here, he activates the effect of his Pero Cerberus, which hits my Boral Sword Dragon, which I completely forgot about. So, good play on his part. It was pretty good. In main phase 2, I set the Compulse, which I probably shouldn't have done since I did have the Dynamistress, but I mean, either way, it is a disruption, so it really didn't matter in the long run. He's going to normal summon his Fluffal Wings and grab himself a Link Karibo. And he passed it to me, which is quite interesting. I thought he was going to attack with Ronin, but I could have bounced it either way. So, yeah. So I attack with Phoenix, and then instead of attacking with Ronin for 100, I just decide to switch it to defense mode. I keep the impermanence in my hand so I can discard it with Dynamistress. I also have the Fog Blade and Judgment still set, so like I'm pretty good for the rest of the game. He sets O-Lion. And I believe I just forget to attack here as well. I should have attacked it. But he's going to normal summon his Jet Synchron he top decked, and he's going to flip his O-Lion, and then he's going to link off into a Barricade Board blocker. And then he's going to summon a token, and he gets a little confused here. He doesn't mean to use the Jet Synchron's effect here, which I do let him take it back, even though like I probably shouldn't have. But he uses the token and the other one, which now that I'm thinking about it, actually he couldn't have done, but I think the token's a level... oh yeah, it's not. I didn't actually see this, but this is a misplay. I believe I still do win this game anyways, though, but I didn't realize that it does require 2 effect monsters, and he did use a token for it. Sorry, I forgot about that. Anyways, he uses Jet Synchron, and I go ahead and Dynamistress it to banish it. And he just scoops up the game. So I had the game won anyways, and it's not like it really affected anything. But yeah, so going into game number 2, I believe he goes first. Yep, and he starts off with the Toy Vendor, discarding the Danger Tsukinoko. I ogre this, and I really shouldn't have. I should have saved the ogre, because I know he's playing Orkest, so I should have saved it for the Galatea. Anyways, we have an argument on how it resolves, but it does actually resolve this way, how it destroys the vendor, and then he can't draw a card. Anyways, so then he gets the dog, and he already searched his deck, so he misses the Tsukunoko's effect. Anyways, he goes ahead and activates the dog's effect to search for the Fluffal Bear, so he can discard that to add another vendor. discarding the Mothman, and also hitting a Jackalope. So they both activate at the same time. He chooses his chain links. Chain 1 Jackalope, chain 2 Mothman. So he looks like he draws into a Nightmare Orkest, and I draw into an Olenoides, which I just discard. And then he discards the Orkest as well. Special summons the Nessie off of the Jackalope, and then uses Nightmare Orkest targeting the Fluffal Dog, sending Bombard, and special summoning Symbol Skeleton, linking off into Galatea. And I believe here he uses Galatea's effect to shuffle back the brass to set the Babel. And this is where I should have saved the Ogre for. I should have Ogred this Galatea here. Anyways, he summons the Dingirsu on top, and then he uses this effect to attach the Nightmare Orkest to it, links off into an IP Masquerena, and sets a call by the grave face down. So in the standby phase, he does use Nightmare Orkest, sending the World Legacy World Wand. And so I did miss this here. I actually didn't know this card worked this way. So I read it later though, and it says neither player can activate monster effects unless the number of monster effects that player has previously activated that turn is less than the number of monster card types on the field. So he did use a Orkest Nightmare sending the World Wand right now. So that means that he technically right now cannot activate other monster effects, but I did actually end up missing this. So he does activate the Symbol Skeleton illegally, and I didn't realize that he couldn't do that under his Inspector border. So I really should have caught that play, but I didn't really think about it even. And then he uses the Dingirsu's effect to send because he does have 2 card types on the field. So like, if he didn't use the Nightmare, he wouldn't be locked under it. But because if that makes sense, because if he didn't use the Nightmare, he could have used the Skeleton when he had the IP Masquerena, and then Dingirsu's effect, since he controls 2 right now, so he can activate the second monster effect, sending the border. But because he did activate the Nightmare Orkest, it became an illegal play. Anyway, so I just set 3 cards face down, and I pass it back to him, and then he draws for turn, summoning or getting Dangerous Tsukinoko, discarding for Toy Vendor. He mills a Brass Bombard, and then he goes ahead and uses Jack's effect to summon Mothman. He uses the Mothman and the IP Masquerena into a copy of Nightmare Phoenix. Pitching the Tsukinoko, he targets my Crackdown, which I say that's okay, and I just get rid of it. I probably should have cracked down the IP Masquerena, but I really didn't see the Nightmare play coming in. Anyway, Tsukinoko summons itself back, and he uses them into a copy of Topologic Trisbane. He then attacks me for 25 and 2600, which is okay here. Goes into main phase 2, and I don't think he has any other plays. I think he can World Wand, so I think he World Wands here, and I'm gonna, so I compulse back the Dingirsu, because my thought process here is that if he World Wand summons back any of these, it doesn't matter which one, my back row is going to get destroyed or banished anyways, so I might as well use my compulse to get rid of the Dingirsu on field. I was thinking if I got rid of the Trisbane, then like sure he would have the Dingirsu on the field and he would still have it in circulation, so he can bring it back with like a skeleton on later turns. But I think my actual like plan is that even if he didn't summon to a zone that Trisbane pointed to, I could then normal summon my Swap Frog and then make a the Paleozoic Olenoides, which is unaffected by monster effects, to banish his Babel and his back row. So that was my thought process here. Obviously, it didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to. He summons back the skeleton, not to his zone that Trisbane pointed to, and he links them off into a Zeroboros. And then he does have the skeleton to banish to summon anything back from the graveyard, so it's pretty good. He passes over to me. I draw into Ash, and then I use Swap Frog's effect. I opt not to use the effect in fear of him just chaining everything, because he didn't activate anything, so I was like, this is interesting. And I realized I actually did not play Paleozoic Olenoides, which is my big mistake here. Anyways, so I use Toad's effect in standby phase to grab Duke Frog, and then he uses Toy Vendor and grabs the Fluffal Wings, and it stays on his hand, it's not actually discarded. Anyways, Then he does use the Toy Vendor's effect, the second effect, to special summon the Fluffal monster from the hand. So Fluffal Wings, and then it's going to trigger Zeroboros, which I'm going to use Toad's effect to negate it. And then we do realize here, so we kind of like have our plays a little bit mixed up. But basically what happens here is like we both like realize we actually have cards that activate. He realizes he does have the Called by the Grave, and then I realize that I do have a Solemn Judgment. So basically the way this is going to resolve is that Zeroboros effect, chain Toad's effect, chain Called by the Grave, chain Judgment. So Judgment negates the Called by the Grave, and then the Toad stays in the graveyard, which we'll fix here in a second, and then the Zeroboros is negated, and then yeah, then the chain resolves and the Toad activates and summons the Swap Frog, or adds it back to my hand. Then he uses the Fluffal Wings into a Link Karibo, and then he activates Fluffal Wings as effect, and I go ahead and ash that because I think that's like this card's really good, just being able to draw 2 cards as well as send the vendor to grave to draw another. So he would get 3 cards out of it, and I realize that's not cool, so I ash the Fluffal Wings. And then he goes ahead and passes it back to me. Actually, no, he activates Skeleton's effect, I believe targeting Galatea, and then puts the Dingirsu on top. Oh, sorry, Galatea sets Crescendo, and then he puts Dingirsu on top, and then attaches the skeleton to it. He goes into battle phase and attacks over my Dupe Frog, which I use to search a second Swap Frog from my deck. And then a Link Karibo attacks for 300 life points. Such a big attack. And then he links them all off into a Galatea, so his Crescendo's live. And he passes it over to me. I top deck into an Inspector Border. I go ahead and normal summon it. I say it's okay. He says it's okay. I go into battle phase, and I go ahead and use it to attack over the Galatea. I don't know why he didn't use the effective Simple Skeleton here to summon back Dingirsu. I guess he just didn't think about it, so he took 200 damage. And then I used Swap Frog's effect to summon itself, and then I realized, wait, I can't activate its effect, so I have to pass it over to him. He top decks into Ash, and he just scoops it up there. So that's pretty good. Moving on into our next replay, we are playing against Stun. So here we go. Looks like he activates a copy of One Day of Peace. We both draw a card. Sets Border, Strike, Fragrance, and Mirror Force. So he activates the anti-spell Fragrance. So I say that's okay. I go ahead and set 5 cards and pass it back to him. And then he goes into main phase 2, draws the Crackdown, and then he uses, he summons Thunder King Ryo, and he gets a little crazy here because I don't even take that long to respond. But anyways, I'm like, wait, in battle phase I use Illinoides, targeting the back row, and then he attacks again. I'm like, wait, I still have stuff, and so I activate Trap Trick, chaining Illinoides to summon itself from deck, banishing Dino Mischief, using it to banish the Inspector Border on the field. And then he uses the Thunder King Ryo to attack over Illinoides. So here, I believe I go ahead and activate Leon Coley's effect, targeting, it doesn't matter which one, Dino Mischief, I guess, I think is what I target. And then I chain my Paleo, and he passes, or he scoops up the game, and he actually leaves the thing anyways. So here, I keep playing, and I just wanted to see if I could possibly, like, kill him. So I just go ahead and make Toad. This back row is currently negated because of Infinite Impermanence, so even if he did activate it, it would be really unfortunate for him. And then I would be able to attack over with Toad for 300 damage, and Mirror Force isn't even that big of an issue. I could Mirror Force the Toad, or like Mirror Force take it, you know, like I'm still fine, or I could even Solemn Judgment, like, to negate it, and then he's left with, like, literally nothing, and he's left top decking pretty much at that point. And I do have an Ash in hand as well, so even if he top decks into a Desires or something, I can still like out stuff. So the Mirror Force, I probably would have just Solemn Judgmented, and then he probably would have been left at a point where he couldn't do anything. So yeah, so that's it for game number 2 against Stun. Alright, and match number 3, I guess I should say. I don't know why I'm saying game. We're playing against, I believe this is Pure Orkest or Danger Orkest. Anyways, I'm trying this new tech, Cyber Stein in my deck, so I go ahead and pay 5,000 life points to special summon Naturic Stereo, which in hindsight is not the card I would have wanted to summon here. And I kind of played it wrong here. Anyways, I should have summoned Last Warrior from Another Planet. But I mean, hindsight's 2020. I'm probably always gonna blind summon Exterio because I didn't expect to play against Orkest. So he goes ahead and activates Mothman's effect. See right here, if I did summon Last Warrior from Another Planet, he literally wouldn't be able to do anything. So he Mothmans, discards Tsukinoko. I say all of this is fine. He draws an Orkest Return to draw some cards. Tsukinoko effect summons itself, discards a Nightmare, draws 2, activates another Mothman. And we hit the Nessie out of his hand. Nessie's effect goes ahead and searches. He draws into another Orchestrated Return. Links off into a Nightmare Phoenix. Using its effect, discarding Chupacabra. And then I chain the back row he targeted, which is Compulse, to destroy the Nightmare Phoenix, or send it back, rather. Chupacabra summons Nessie from the graveyard. He sets Orkest Return and then activates Jackalope. I hit it with with its own snipe. Its effect summons Tsukinoko, and he turns the Tsukinoko and the skeleton into Galatea. So I should use Ogre, but I just keep forgetting that this card exists. Well, but I don't use it here. It's not the case. But he activates the Nightmare targeting the Mothman, sending the World Wand. And then I go ahead and he uses Wand's effect, which to summon from the hand, because you can summon another World Wand from your hand, which I didn't realize that was actually an effect. So I chained the Compulsory to bounce it back. He summons the Wand because the chain resolves backwards. Skeleton effect summons the Galatea, and then here he uses the World Wand to summon the Nightmare from his Banish Zone. And then here, he uses Galatea's effect, and I really should have ogred this, and I don't know why I didn't. Anyways, he goes ahead and activates Babel, and I'm going to go ahead and Naturic Exterior to negate that, and I mill a Paleo Olenoides. He links everything off into a Boral Sword, and he is extremely smart with these plays. I am shocked, because he goes ahead and uses Boral Sword Dragon to attack. I asked him, like, are you using the effect to half? And he said no, which is a smart play because he's playing around Ogre. So I take 200 damage and my Exterior is destroyed. He goes ahead and activates attacks with Mothman, which is at 2600. So I do take, I believe I should take 1900 damage instead of 21, which is what I took, so I should have 200 more life points, but it's not going to matter in the long run, because he uses Sword's effect. I think I could have used Ogre in this case, but I actually couldn't, because it says your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation right here. So actually I couldn't even activate Ogre, and he reminds me that here in a second, and I say, yeah, you got the game pretty much. Or actually, I don't say you got the game. I say on resolution of Boral Sword Dragon, I use the Heavy Storm Duster to target the back row, and then I chain Olenoides from the grave, so he attacks it instead. Passes it back to me. I draw Swap Frog. I see there's no targets in the graveyard, nothing I can really work with, so I go ahead and scoop up the game. We side and we take first. So I go ahead and draw into this lovely hand, which Waking the Dragon plus Cyber Stein literally is probably a bad combination. I should have seen this earlier, because I wanted to go for so I paid the 5,000 life points again, which is crazy. Cyber Stein twice in a row. I'm trying this new tech, and it's pretty crazy. I summoned the Last Warrior from Another Planet, like I should have done in the last game, but I didn't know. And I actually set the Waking the Dragon, which I really shouldn't have done here. I should have set the Olenoides, because this has more use on the field than this does, because I can't summon because of Last Warrior's effect. Anyways, he Twin Twisters me, hits the Waking the Dragon. Can't summon anything. Big deal, I guess. Not really that big of a deal. But, yeah, sets a card, passes it back to me. I draw, I attack, I pass, draw, pass, set, you know, like, we're pretty much just draw, pass, setting at this point. So we just keep drawing and passing and setting. Looks like Instant Fusion does nothing, Babel does nothing, which I Olenoides did anyways, and he scoops it up. Anyways, moving on into game number 3. He takes first, I believe, activates Orchestrator Return, which I go ahead and Ash. I think that's the right call there. He goes ahead and activates Danger Nessie, which I go ahead and snipe the skeleton out of his hand, which he summons back. Then Jackalope effect, and I go ahead and hit the Jackalope. He summons Mothman off of it. He banishes Skeleton, trying to target the Skeleton, but you actually can't do that. I didn't know this was a play, actually, but you cannot actually summon Skeleton with Skeleton's effect. It does say that right there. So make sure to catch your Orkest opponents if they try to summon Skeleton off Skeleton, because you cannot do that. Anyways, so my turn comes around. I go ahead and set a Dupe Frog, set an Impermanent, set a Crackdown, and another Crackdown. I do have a Nibiru in hand for a follow-up play. He switches them both to attack mode, and he links them off into a Nightmare Phoenix. Nightmare Phoenix's effect, discarding the World Wand. I go ahead and Impermanence that. He activates Avarice in the same column that I just used Impermanence in, and I catch it, and yeah, he just scoops it up right there. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't think he really had like any other plays he could have done, because like his graveyard's pretty much dead. I don't know what my next card would have been, but I mean, I could have Crackdown took his monster and tributed Nibiru and then just hit him 3,000 attack. I don't know. It's definitely like dependent on what my next card in my hand would have been, because he's in a top deck situation. Anyways, moving on to the next game, we are playing against Altergeist, and he draws evenly matched for his turn. So he goes ahead and he just passes it to me. So I thought he bricked completely. So I just set a Dupe Frog, set 2 cards, because this hand is an absolute brick as well. So I was like, wow, this sucks. He goes in and evenly matched me. I accidentally banished the Duster face up, which I really shouldn't have done. And I finally banished it face down. I think I should have kept the Leoncolia set, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the right play there would have been, really. I don't think it really matters here. You'll see in a second. I just go ahead and scoop because I see nothing good right here. So, game number 2. We draw double copies of Swap Frog, and looks like he drew a copy of Ash, which is pretty good against Toad. Anyway, so I do the normal Swap Frog play, Swap Frog discard, special, send, add back to hand, summon, send, special, Ronin effect, summons, make Toad. Anyways, the normal. I set Olanoides and Judgment and pass it to him. I use Toad's effect. He goes ahead and ashes that. That's totally fine. And right here, I think, like, with the hand that he had right here, I think this was the right play for me to Judgment the summon of that. It was kind of a risky play here, but it actually ended up working, I think, in my favor. He has Crackdown, Compulse, and Spoofing set. So I go ahead in the end phase, activate Olanoides, and I hit Spoofing, which is probably the worst one I could have hit, because if I hit one of these, then I could Ogre the Spoofing, which is the best play, I think. But he goes ahead and in draw phase, actually activates Toad's effect. I negate it, and he chains Crackdown. So then I set the Compulse to my field, and I really should have chained Olanoides here, because I could have made a Toad on my on this turn as well, which would have been the best play for me. But I just, for some reason, forgot that I could chain a Paleo to Crackdown. Anyways, so I pass it to him, because I have nothing left. He goes ahead and activates Duality, banishes the worst 3 cards he could have banished, evenly matched Imperial Order, which does nothing against my deck, evenly matched, which does nothing for him right now, and Extravagance, which he can't activate because it's not the start of the main phase 1. So, absolutely terrible reveals off of Duality. He normal summons Altergeist Silkitas, which I go ahead and activate, or chain the Compulse targeting the Toad, meaning, which he can't activate due to Crackdown effect. I would have chained a Paleo Engrave, and then from there, I could summon like another Frog, and I can negate the Extravagance that he would activate the next turn, and so he just saw the writing on the wall, and he scooped it up. Moving on into the 3rd and final game, we draw into this lovely hand, Unending Nightmare, which is my personal tech against Altergeist, Guru Control, and Pendulum, because it destroys everything. So nice. So good. Anyways, we normal summon Swap Frog, and return it back to our hand, set 2 cards because I don't want to play into evenly matched. Plus, these 2 are the ones that I don't really care about the most, that impact his board the most. Like they're the ones that are the least impactful to my strategy, while being the most impactful to his, if that makes sense. So, Marionetter sets the protocol, which is fine. I'm just gonna hit it with the Unending Nightmare anyways. He attacks for 1600, that's fine. Sets Crackdown, Manifestation, and Spoofing, which all of these can get hit with Unending Nightmare. So I Storm Duster, hit the Spoofing as well as the Manifestation. Draw for turn, I draw Scapegoat. He ashes my Swamp Frog's normal summon. I set 2 cards face down and pass it back to him. Then for his turn, he goes ahead and attacks with Marionetter. I say that's fine. I take 3,000 more damage. He sets in Impermanence, which is okay. It's in this column, which is actually probably the best column. I activate Scapegoat in the end phase, and summoning 4 tokens. Absolutely crazy. I go ahead and use a token into Spider, use the next token into Karibo, use them for Phoenix, discarding Impermanence, and he imperms my Phoenix, which is okay. I use the Link Spider as well as the token into Nightmare Cerberus, and then I use the Phoenix to attack the Marionetter. So normally I would go for the Link 4 guy, what is it, Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax, but in this case I would be doing more damage because Phoenix attacks this, and this attacks directly. I'm doing 1900 damage instead of 1400 damage because this is not a special monster. Anyways, he activates Crackdown, targeting my Nightmare Phoenix. I Chain Dynamis, just targeting Crackdown, discarding the Swap Frog. He draws, sees the writing on the wall, and scoops it up. So yeah, that's it. Moving on into our last and final game, I believe we are playing against Lightsworn Orkest. And don't worry, this is a quick one. So he uses Charge of the Light Brigade, milling the top 3 cards, and searching for a Maiden. Drawing 2 off of Allure, banishing the Symbol Skeleton, and he activates, or normal summons Armageddon Knight, which I hit with an Impermanence. He then sets this Call by the Grave in his hand, and he has nothing left in his hand to use. Draws it to my turn, I draw Storm Duster, and I promptly set go and pass. He draws into a Lila, and normal summons the Brass Bombard, summons a Galatea, and then on summon I go ahead and use Illinoides, and then I chain the Trap Trick to set Dynamis, and he scoops it up and leaves. So really interesting. I don't know why he did that, but I go ahead here and, you know, I'm playing the game out as if we still were playing because I wanted to see if I can still do stuff. So in the end phase, it looks like he does have nothing, I don't think, in his hand that he can really play with because this gets banished. So I summon this, and then from here I can turn everything into an Avermax to return the stuff to the graveyard. And there's no way for me to do other stuff, but I do have an Avermax backed up with 2 copies of Solemn Judgment. So, like, I had this game won. I think that's pretty clear. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Road to 1000 Dueling Book Rating. If you did like it, please do drop a like and leave some suggestions for decks that I should play. Maybe I'll take, you know, like, suggestions, or if any, like, card suggestions especially. Yeah, so with that said, I will see you guys in the next video.